Hello and welcome back to Strategy for Breakfast, where we are hungry to know what makes people and their organizations successful. Here on our YouTube channel, we're continuing the conversation with Dr. Cornelia Shipley Bearyman. She's the founder and CEO of 3C Consulting, where she works to help companies really retain and not only retain their people, but advance them and get people to really tap into their full potential. This is an extended version of a conversation we started over on our podcast channel. So our audio only listeners got to hear. We covered the viral Coldplay Kiss Cam moment that really thrust Chief People Officer in that role, HR in general, into the spotlight. So here, Dr. Cornelia, we get to take a deeper dive. We've got a little bit more room to talk about the waves in the world of HR. First of all, you had a lot of people reaching out to you just because of the nature of what you do, of people saying, oh gosh, why did this blow up so much? What was really wrong with the affair? How did it impact business? And what could have been done or should have been done that wasn't done? One thing we didn't get to talk through on the podcast was kind of the repercussions. So as it sort of ended, the CEO and the CPO both resigned. If they had worked through this all differently, do you think that conclusion could have been different?
Yeah, so there's a couple things we don't know, right? One of which is both of these individuals reportedly are married.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if they had an interest in leaving those marital situations, right? We also know that the United States has particular standards about multiple people in a relationship, which is not true in other parts of the world, right? This was happening in Saudi Arabia. It might not be a problem because culturally people have multiple wives, multiple partners. It's not a big deal, right? For the man in that culture, the woman might have some problems, but right. So part of the reason this was perceived as wrong is because in the United States, we say if you're married, that means a particular set of things, including that you don't sleep with other people. Now, what we also don't know is whether or not one or both of those marriages agreed to external parties.
Right.
So there's a lot that we're applying culturally as a community, right? Coldplay said, oh, well, they're either, really, really shy.
Either shy or having an affair. Yeah.
Right. And so we're applying a set of cultural norms to a situation we don't have full context for. Right. Now, because you opted to take on a leadership position in a corporation that likely, don't know for sure, had a morality clause and likely has a set of policies around your decorum in and outside of the workplace based on your role as an executive in the company, you were contractually obligated, again, potentially, haven't seen their employment contract, to behave and, manage yourself in a particular way.
Yeah.
So they made a conscious decision. And oftentimes when we choose consciously to make a decision that we know is not in alignment with what we've agreed to, we presume and assume we won't get caught.
That's so human.
Right?
Yep.
We just presume and assume we won't get caught. And then we get caught and we act surprised.
Oh dear, oops, there was a camera there in this public place.
In this public place where, oh, by the way, they likely have been seeing people on camera the whole time at the shop, right?
Yeah.
So it's a question of the way human nature works. We assume it will happen to others. It won't happen to us. Right? And he's not the first person to be publicly. I mean, the TV show Cheaters exists.
That's right.
To catch people on camera. Right? And so we know that this occurs every single day.
Yeah.
People who are in extramarital affairs just assume they're not going to be the one to get caught. Right? And as a conscious leader, you have to understand all of your actions are reviewable. People may see them, and they're going to come to conclusions based on what you're doing and how you're acting. And so you have to get to the point where you say, I'm willing to hold myself to a standard that says, if this is on the front page of the New York Times, Times Magazine, Forbes Magazine, whatever, I am okay with living with the consequences of my actions. Now, the other thing that likely occurred is that they both likely got a very nice parachute, meaning that they probably got a very decent severance package. And as part of that severance package, possibly, there was a clause in the CPO's contract, her agreement, that said she wouldn't sue the company. The reason that clause may have been in there is because the CEO is in a power dynamic with the CPO, right? And anytime that happens, even if the affair was consensual, if in fact the person who is in the lower power position could easily say, claim, true or untrue, don't know, but could claim that they were being sexually harassed. So now you have this public incident, right? And if in fact the individual so chose, they could say, this was a piece of sexual harassment. I didn't have a choice, blah, 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 right? Again, don't know, not saying she did or didn't do that, but we do know that there have been relationships that started off in a consensual manner that then were reported as sexual harassment. And so as a leader, you have to remember your level of exposure. You're exposing yourself in ways that you may not have thoroughly thought through or considered.
Yeah. And there's so many other people impacted too. I mean, there's the families, the kids, if there are any, which I think there are. But then there's also the disruption to the business. So they wind up resigning. That's a whole ripple for the company. Now you can argue that they've gotten some positive press out of it, you know, the company at large. And they have, you know, they even had Gwyneth Paltrow do a little funny tongue-in-cheek sort of video to the effect, making the most of the moment. But hasn't probably yet translated into any material business value. This could potentially harm the business. So it's not only the harm to the personal side of being a leader and what those choices have wrought, but also the business harm. So what would have been a better case scenario if two people do want to have a relationship and one happens to be an executive? What's the best route?
So most organizations, you know, people spend more time at work than they spend with their families. And there are lots of people who come to organizations married. There are lots of people who work in organizations and get married because they're spending so much time in the workplace. Most organizations and the organizations we work with have policy around that, right? So if it gets to a particular point, you are obligated to report that to HR, because there's a recognition that you could be making promotion decisions, salary decisions, all kinds of things could be happening depending upon who the two people are and what their power dynamic in the workplace is. So assuming that in this case, Astronomer had that policy, they should have reported their relationship. Now, the sticky thing is, we don't know if either spouse, I don't think this is true, but we don't know if either spouse worked in the organization. And we know that, you know, a secret can be kept if one person is dead.
That's right.
Right. So,
which is to say, very hard.
It's very, very hard. Right. And so the more people that become aware, the more problems that you have. Right. But ideally, they would have reported it, which would have then meant these people followed Astronomer's response could have been, we were aware.
We were aware.
They, you know, they followed our processes and protocols. We can't speak to the morality of it, but that goes to the morality clause, right? If there's a morality clause, that's a different set of problems. But they could have had that reportedly reported. And then from an organization perspective, assuming everything was done above board on the organization front, Now the organization has to decide if, because of public embarrassment, public outcry, etc., potential impact to this billion-dollar company, what they want to do.
Interesting. There's so much more am I missing anything glaring that we should talk about? Because I also want to ask you what else HR leaders are worried about these days. But anything else on the Kiss Cam while we're here?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just, it's an interesting reflection on where we are in the world today, because logistically, and I've tried to bring in a couple of these pieces in the conversation. I don't know that Coldplay did or didn't say what he said because of AI, right? I don't know what happened from a, policy reporting perspective. I don't know if the parties were in a consensual situation with their spouses. And if they were, because this is now public embarrassment, whether or not they would even admit that. Right.
Yep.
So there's so much that I just don't know, right, about the actual circumstance. And so as an HR leader, you've got to put processes in place to support you for the what if scenario.
Yes.
Right. I was talking with an HR colleague of mine, and one of her friends was saying that their CEO wanted to issue a statement saying that they were not having an affair. Right.
Just for the record.
Just for the record. And I don't think that that's necessary at all. But it is a reflection of the times in which we live, right? If you think, you're behaving in ways that are above board, and you think you need to make a public statement about that because somebody else got caught in an affair, it's really a reflection of the times we're living in. And ultimately, it doesn't matter where you sit in an organization, the internet lives forever.
Yes.
And so you have to be able to comport and, conduct yourself in ways that if it lines up on the front page of Yahoo News, you're going to be okay with that.
I read an interview actually with the woman who, uploaded the first video of this. And she was saying, it was she didn't realize it was going to be such a moment, but yeah, there's also the choice of the person who recorded the kiss cam and the conversation and what Chris Martin, the lead singer, said, the reactions, and made the choice to be the first person to upload that video and put it there for public comment. So that's the world we live in too.
Well, and then the last thing I'll say is people need to understand the laws in this country, right? Because there are a couple of YouTube and social media channels where people are doing First Amendment challenges, right? They'll go outside of a store and record outside, and the person comes in and says, "You can't record inside our store." And they're like, I'm not recording. They called the police, and the police are like, "You need to know the law because legally they are well within their right to stand here and record you." Right. And so there's a presumption people have about their privacy in the United States that just is not accurate. It's not part of our legal system. And so knowing that and understanding not only what your company has to say, but what does the law have to say? Right? Because that woman who uploaded that video was well within her right.
Yeah, within her rights.
But well within her legal right. Now, you could get into an argument about whether or not it should or shouldn't be recorded and should or shouldn't have been uploaded.
Yeah.
And we live in a world where, because of reality television, we believe that people's moments, public, private, otherwise,
the scandalous ones,
are fair game. I have a cousin who took pictures of her proposal. They were professionally taken. She uploaded them so family could see them. People picked up those photos and have used them in all kinds of contexts without her approval. Now, again, social media says you post it, people can reach it. They can do all the things with the information. The question is, should they? Right. And in the case of the kiss cam moment, what we know to be true is people thought it was funny. And the reality is there were human beings involved. And it was unfortunate that the people, not necessarily on the screen, but the people who love them, the people who care about them, have been negatively impacted. And oftentimes when we see a viral moment like this, people aren't considering the collateral damage that's going to occur.
100% agree with you on that. Kiss cam aside, you said one other word I got to touch on before I let you go, and that is AI. So AI has really embedded itself into all of our personal lives and a lot of our business processes. And you and I met at a GDS CHRO summit where you and a colleague with 3C Consulting led some great roundtable discussions over the course of 2 days. I know you talked a lot about a lot of different HR themes and topics, but I'd love to ask you what you make of the technology piece and utilizing AI within HR. Where do you see that going? And how do you see HR leaders bringing people along to sort of embrace good tools and good tech?
Yeah, so there's lots of great things that can be done with AI, right? If you train, it's Josh Bersin, his company has an HR AI bot called Galileo. And there are lots of organizations that are using Galileo and training their version of it, to really support processes that don't require a human touch. So, for example, navigating your enrollment in your benefits in the organization, a bot could walk you through that, right? Helping you with your time system, reporting your time, your expense reports, all kinds of administrative things that could be leveraged, right? There's huge amounts of data analysis, right? When you think about promotability and people's, brand in the organization and your succession planning processes, you can use AI to validate that you're not being discriminatory, assuming your organization values that, right? There are a ton of things that can be done. The challenge comes when you're having AI, like my AI is talking to your AI, and there's no real human conversation happening at the points in the system where human voices matter. Right. And so it's about looking at your systems and processes and people and understanding when is a human necessary, right? Like, I don't think we'll ever get to the point where clinical psychologists will go away. Yes, you can train an AI, but at some point the AI may say something that causes somebody to jump, and then suddenly we have a problem, right? And so the same thing is true from an HR perspective. There are enough human touch points that are required, like this one, right? Like the Coldplay Kiss Cam. Having an AI decide all the actions you're going to take is probably not appropriate. Probably. They could decide some of the things. They could write the termination letter for you and, help you edit it. They could review, the employment agreement and tell you what's in, this is what you put the scenario, you put the employment agreement and ask, were there any violations of this agreement? It's going to spit out and tell you, yep, these are the violations, right? So there are ways that you could even in this instance use AI, but having that human filter is going to really, really matter.
I'm glad you think so. I agree with you there. And certainly let's use it to facilitate things and to make things better, easier, faster. But yeah, keep the human in HR, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you spending time with us, breaking down these issues and talking about the importance of why it is imperative to plan and have policies in place. This serves the company well because we're dealing with people. Things pop up, don't they?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, the human condition is going to show up in any space, any place. And if you're not prepared for the dynamics of the human condition to exist in your organization, you are ill prepared. You're ill prepared.
Let's be prepared, listeners, viewers. Dr. Cornelia Shipley Bearyman, thank you so much for spending time with us. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Strategy for Breakfast. For more content, including our audio episode with Dr. Cornelia, just check out the Strategy for Breakfast podcast, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen. And if you would like to join us at a GDS group event like the one where Dr. Cornelia and I got to meet, please find out what's happening at gdsgroup.com. Thank you, Kelley Iuele, signing off.